So my name's Tony Sham. I describe myself as a marketing enthusiast, and I love all things marketing, and I'm a student of what happens throughout marketing. As those of you who've ever been to any of my events before, I have a background in marketing research. And as I've said many times, when you get into marketing research mode, you're stuck in it for life. So I'm an avid marketing researcher. I do it all day long, whether it's official or unofficial. When I go to the store, I'm busy observing, and I just can't, I'm compulsive. I can't get out of it. But what we're going to talk about right now is in particular email marketing. And so I'd like to give you my overview of where email marketing stands right now in my research, because I think it's just as relevant right now as what it's ever been in times gone by. So welcome to the State of Email Marketing 2020. Oh, my title says 2021. It's I originally started doing this in 2021, but we're looking at it specifically this month, April 22. So the question is, where does email marketing stand in South Africa right now in 2022? I have to ask myself a question: is it a relic of the past that's been dealt a death blow by our South African version of privacy legislation, the POPIA or the POPIA Act? That many people came to that conclusion. Is it no longer a viable option for marketing right now? Is another question that relates to that. Or is it one of the most responsive mediums for marketing as we speak right now in April 22? I'm not going to answer the questions. I have my own view, but I'm going to give you some information which is going to enlighten you and help you to answer that question. So what about the elephant in the room, the POPIA Act, or Protection of Personal Information Act, and where do we stand with that right now? Well, here's the thing. The implications of the POPIA Act is that you better make sure that you're using a POPIA or a POPI compliant database. Having said that, in South Africa, no one is exactly sure how POPIA will play out in the direct marketing space. The Act was enacted 5 years ago. We've had various delays, etc. And right now in 2022, there still has never been a case before the regulator. And so everybody can claim whatever, but no one can say with 100% certainty our database is compliant. Now, you may or you may not know that I'm active in the world of database. And our attorney, John Giles of Mickelson's in Durban, is the most knowledgeable legal mind on the marketing applications of POPI. And there are two sections of POPI. There's POPI as it affects your bank, and POPI as it affects your hospital. That is super tight. But POPI as it affects direct marketing is up in the air. Why? Because the legislation is written in principles, and exactly how the principles will be considered is a matter that will be applied by the regulator. Now, the regulator that we have is a very senior lady. She used to be the CEO of the Electoral Commission and one of the brightest minds around. However, there's still a wide area of vagueness as to exactly how POPIA will pan out. But there are certain guidelines. And so John Giles assures us that our database, I'm not here to sell data, I'm here to promote email marketing. But our database, the Interactive Direct business-to-business database, and that of our international partners, Compass International, fulfill the demands of POPI in South Africa. How viable is email marketing right now? It's the question that I am going to address. Well, I follow a group called Validity, who are worldwide email marketing experts. Not that they know everything, but they know quite a bit. What do they have to say on this matter? They produce an annual State of Email Marketing report. They're based in the USA. Their scope is international. So I'm not talking here, I'm talking about a global view here. The 2022 report has just been published. I'll give you the links. You can go and download that report. And what do they say? They say regarding, it's a 17-page report. There's a lot of information in there. However, some of the main findings that are focused on is that 8% of all their respondents say that email effectiveness is improving significantly. 30% say it's improving slightly. The majority, the biggest section, 39% say that its effectiveness is holding steady. 14% say it's declining slightly, and 9% say it's declining significantly. So look at the numbers, and the numbers are telling us that 8 plus 30 plus 39, 77% of their respondents who are professional marketers who use email are saying that the effectiveness of email is either holding steady, it's improving slightly, or improving significantly. Only 23% of their respondents say that its effectiveness is declining at all. This is the link, and I'll send it to you a bit later for where you can download that 2022, where they've called it Mastering the Email Landscape report. You can go, and if you've got the time, you can go and read it for yourself. Some of the issues that they raise, there's a lot of talk in there about deliverability. How sure can you be that when you send an email that it will be delivered to the destination? And essentially, in 2022, it used to be in days gone by that you had to be very careful with the wording that you used in email, because if you triggered the anti-spam system, that would cause your mail to bounce. In 2022, that's almost 100% not the case. In 2022, how deliverable your email is how sound the reputation of your sending email server and your sending email domain is. And it doesn't really matter what you put in it. If they don't like you, they will bounce you, even if you have good tidings. And so one has to pay a lot of attention to the hygiene of your email sending capability. You've got to either, if you're using a professional email service provider, they better have a good reputation. Or if you're doing it for yourself, you'd better have a good reputation. Because over time, they will track your behavior, and you will find yourself increasingly getting blocked. So getting blocked is the hurdle that we have to jump. One of the ways in which bad deliverability or in which bad email reputation gets measured is when your list is not clean. When you send an email to an email address, and that email address is one of the following, it doesn't exist anymore, and you're still sending to that address, there are systems in place that make that count against you. If you bought a cheap and nasty email list and you're sending it across the board, there are certain email addresses that get put in these lists called spam traps. Those are not real people, but the email database owners use those to track who's using their database under the cloud of anonymity. And if you send an email to one of these spam traps, you're going to get punished. So your list needs to be clean, your database, whether it's your own or whether it's a database that you use, that you hire or that you buy from a third party. So list hygiene is something that's important. Interestingly, they spend a lot of time, and I attend their monthly webinar, which is really, if you're in this space, if you do a lot of email marketing, I strongly recommend. And they spend a lot of time looking at subject line optimization. The subject line is really important to acceptability of your email, because that is the first thing that people see. Now, you have a challenge. You have a challenge with the subject line. On the one hand, you need to make it interesting. On the other hand, you need to be clear on what the intentions are of the email that's to follow. So you're trying to balance these two poles. Clarity, making it interesting. There are ways of doing both. A new thing that wasn't around in 21, but it's become a factor in 2022, and you're going to hear this acronym. It's called BIMI. BIMI. Brand Indicators for Message Identification. And so BIMI is an accreditation that your sending mail server gets, and the accreditation, I'm going to use my own words here, I probably somebody may want to have a go at me for putting it in such simple terms, but basically accreditation is how sound your sending email server and your sending email environment is, and that you've been BIMI accredited allows you to use a logo with your email address. So when somebody receives an email from a BIMI accredited environment, you can see a small, tiny logo that belongs to the owner of it. For example, if you ever get a mail from Google, you will see that big round G, white print on an orange background. And so if you're a serious player, you want to be BIMI accredited. That's something that's become quite topical recently. The other issue that they spend a lot of time discussing is A/B testing. Now, I've often said, marketing in the 21st century is half science, half art. Although, as I've said, and some of you will recognize this, as time goes by, it seems to me that it becomes more art than science. I don't think the 50-50 split applies anymore. I think it's gone to something like 55-45. I'm a statistician, man. I'll fuss over the 1% here and 1% there. However, what everybody agrees on is that email gives you the potential of a fantastic laboratory to test different aspects of your marketing strategy, different wording, different copywriting, and generally we refer to that as A/B testing. The A/B test is a simple one. It says you send one campaign out with this wording and another campaign out with some alternative wording, and you see which one runs better. It does get complicated, but we're not going to go there right now. They also have at Validity a really useful ebook in their resource center called The Fundamentals of Email Marketing. And email marketing is kind of like art. You look at, I don't know, one artist looks at another artist's work and says, this is good. Or do they say, oh, this is good, but it's not quite as good as my art. That's you're going to have to decide for yourself. So I'll send you this URL. If you're interested in this, you can go and download. It's amazing the amount of really useful top-class resources that exist on the email, but there's a lot of junk as well. So you've got to be a bit careful about what you download. Talking generally now, some of the advantages of email marketing over other forms of marketing. And the first one is the most important. Email marketing goes to where your target market hangs out, rather than expecting them to come to you. When you go and use some of the other media that are available, you're waiting for people to come to you. If you're marketing on social media, you're hoping that people will come to your ad there. If you're marketing on the internet in any form, you're hoping that people will come there. When you use email marketing, your message goes to where the people are. And really, more than anything else, I believe that this is the compelling reason why people, I believe, who are really in the know, use email marketing. We go to where they are. I'm a fan of Seth Godin. He says, put your marketing where they hang out. Well, where do they hang out? Where do most of your prospects hang out? If you're in professional services or business, they hang out in the office or at their desk. When they go to Facebook, they're going there to blow off some steam and to chat a bit. They're not going there really to look for a service provider. Email marketing is there. It's great for A/B testing. I've already mentioned that. And it's the best medium for keeping in touch with the people who already know you. So I'll come back to that. Using email to get to people who don't already know you, and using people to keep in touch with people who do already know you. Some of the problems, and there are problems, there's no perfect marketing medium. Some of the problems with email marketing is that recent developments have made it even harder for some of the stats that we're used to getting out of email campaigns to measure. reads, read percentages, open rates, click-throughs, etc. In fact, in our country, this is not a new thing. We've got a lot, this has been an issue for us for some time. Well, there are a few things. Some people read their mail without opening it. Some people's mail systems, and in particular, the one that struck a chord overseas, I'm not quite sure how badly we're affected here. But Apple, if somebody receives their mail on an Apple device, then Apple will automatically trigger all the links in the email and regard that email as having been opened. So you will suddenly, what they found overseas is that suddenly the opening rates spiked, but they weren't real. They were simply security systems triggering off that open condition. We've had it here a bit longer than that with some of the other systems that are active in our country. And so you can't take read and open rates literally. They are always going to be overstated. I've already mentioned a major problem with email, if you don't know your way around the terrain, is the fact that your email can get blocked. You have to navigate carefully around it. Some people complain about low response rates. I don't have many clients who are complaining about low response rates. And that's for two reasons. One, we are experiencing among the highest response rates that I've ever had in a 25-year career. I've been involved in email marketing from the very first time we had email. So we go way back. We're getting good response rates. But response rates are not, you don't measure them in high percentages. You measure them in the low percent. If we do a B2B campaign and we get a 1% response rate, that is absolutely fantastic. Typically, we're talking about response rates that are lower and sometimes quite a bit lower. But that doesn't mean that they're not viable, because very often in email campaigns, we're not looking at the mass market. We're looking at finding that one or two very special people who will respond to our ads and come into our environment. So low response rates are relative. If you know your way around, as I say, I certainly don't have any clients complaining about low response rate. My perspective, and this is on South Africa, I know that I have some other guests here from the African continent, and one in particular, Patrick, from France. It may be different there. I'm just telling you what's happening here in South Africa as I see it. We're having some of the best response rates that we've had for ages. And that could be so many people got fearful of POPIA, and they have every reason to be if they're not, if they don't have good practice, that some of the clutter has been removed. One of the things that happen if you're in a business like mine is that people who don't understand the POPIA Act give us a hard time. So be it. Goes with the territory. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, they say. And if you're going to be sensitive to the odd person complaining here and there because they've got a misinterpretation of POPIA and are threatening to do this and do that, maybe it's better you go to Google, go to Facebook, go to other media. You will never get in trouble there. Using effective strategies for email marketing is sacrosanct. When I look at my inbox, I have to agree with anybody who says the majority of email marketing is completely ineffective. I look at what other people are doing and they're just going on and on and on about how great they are and how excellent their products and services are. And that is not how you use this medium. So if that's what you're doing, you can, then this low response rates are what you're going to get actually. The email medium is based on wording. It's based on copy. It's based on copywriting. Your copy is going to engage people. What you say is going to engage, not how you say it and how flash your campaign is, and whether you have graphics and all these other things that people go overboard on, in my view. Email marketing works when you tap into something that is relevant and interesting to the reader. If you get both, you're going to connect with the people that you are hoping to connect with. I've never seen anything but that happen when it's done properly. When you send somebody an email message, you've got to understand, you get 7 seconds. On average, 7 seconds. That's the amount of time that people look at an email before deciding what they're going to do with it. If you don't catch them in 7 seconds, what are they going to do? They're going to hit the big D, delete. Boom, your mail extinct, it's gone. If you can captivate somebody's attention, if you can get them to raise their hand in 7 seconds, they will carry on reading the rest of your mail. 7 seconds is roughly the subject line plus the next 2 lines. Or you've got to use that space to connect with the recipient. I see so many people putting pics and logos and in that space. I'm like a cranky old guy when I see that. They're wasting it. And so, yes, they will complain about low response rates. I see messages coming through that are text heavy. Here's the thing, in my experience, nobody, when I say no one, maybe 1 or 2% of people read paragraphs, but I'm using a bit of exaggeration. No one reads paragraphs. People look at a paragraph, they see this massive wording, and they skip it. And so we can't use paragraphs. We've got to use single sentences. Point form is good because that's a list that somebody can just go down very quickly, and don't give them a lot of words because people are just not going to read them. Elaborate graphic design and banners do nothing in this medium. To have a very picturesque, well-designed on the internet can be great. On your website, fantastic. On your email marketing, no, it's not the place for that. Less is more here. You want to be, you want to use words to entice the recipient and not pictures and all the things that people try to use. The other reason why email marketing goes wrong is that people ask for too much too soon. We have a saying, it's a bit of an in-joke, don't ask for a kiss on the first date. Don't expect them to take up your offer immediately. Email marketing is going to get, when it's successful, gets one thing. It gets the attention of the recipient. It gets them to raise your hand and say, I hear what you're saying. That is the goal of the medium. It's not to sell them something. Yes, now and then, we'll get it right and we'll sell them something right away. But we want them to know about us more than we want to sell. We want the customers for their lifetime value. We're not just interested in one sale. We've got to take the prospect through a process or a journey. Another one of my referees, on24, on24.com, go there if you want some really valuable input, refer to 2 types of data, first party and third party data. And you have to understand that there are both of these. Third party data is data that you will get from an external data provider. My company provides third party data. Those people may or may not know about you. We want to tell them about you. First party data is data that you've compiled. It's people that have engaged with either your messages or your companies. They're people who either know you, they're either your customers, they know about you, they've heard about you. And we relate differently. The messaging for third-party data is different than it is from first-party data. Third-party data, we want to tell them about us, and we want them to hear us and get their attention. First-party data, people already know us, so we talk a bit more intimately. We can sometimes get a bit more bold in our messaging to them, because at the end of the day, there comes a point when we want their business. Third-party data, you've got to find a reputable data supplier. There's no other option. First-party data is generally data that companies keep internally. And oh my word, I've done a lot of work on companies' first-party data, and some of it is garbage, man. We've done a process called data cleanup. We've done it fairly regularly. A company sends us their database. We go through an updating process. And here's what I found, almost universal. Every time we work on a company's data, 50% of it, almost to the T, time after time, is nonsense. The people have left, they're no longer there. The data is not being kept up to date. It's gone. It's wasted. Boom. You got a cull. 50% of it remains. So you may say, whoa, do I go through this process and lose half my data? Yes, you do. Because the 50% that remains is pure gold. It's pure marketing gold. Those are the people who already know you, they're warm to you, and those are the people who are most likely to respond to your marketing stimulus. The work of third-party data is to build your first-party data. I hope my jargon connects here. We refer to that as cold and warm marketing. Cold marketing you send to people who don't know you. You speak in a different tone. To warm marketing, people who do know you. And for warm marketing, there simply is no better medium than email. Even Google and social media use email to keep in touch with their regular community. Make sure that your message is relevant to the target audience. I have a thing, relevance statement that I make. Relevance is more important than privacy. Send somebody a message that's relevant and you will get a good response. I'm going to leave it at that. Select the target market that you're going to aim at carefully. Seth Godin says something which is such wisdom. He says, you can't be, who is it for? Who is it for? Who is your target market? Be careful. It's for somebody, but you can't be for everybody. If you think you're for everybody, you're wasting your time. Sometimes people in the email campaigns are trying to get everybody instead of trying to focus on specific people with the specific attributes that are going to connect with us. Sometimes it's not their demographics. Sometimes it's their mindset. Sometimes it's their worldview. Sometimes it's the way that they do business. And that's not a straightforward thing. It's a bit more difficult. So people, thank you for giving me your attention for the past 38 minutes. I really hope you got some value out of this. I think, honestly, with the hand on heart, that email is the most responsive medium, especially in the area of business to business. If you're going to do email marketing, make sure you get the basics right. Good deliverability, good list hygiene, good strategy, good copywriting. If you've got those right, honestly, you can't go wrong. So I'm available. I'm available to help you professionally or just as an advisor. Fantastic question here from Alison Watt. What is your opinion on neuromarketing? Now, if you've not heard the term, neuromarketing is the application of neuroscience to marketing. One of the people who are active in neuromarketing in South Africa, my good friend Colleen Backstrom from Cape Town, is convinced that there's a buy button in the brain. I don't know if I feel that quite as strongly as she does, but there's certainly, Alison, there is a place for it. We're only starting to learn about it. There's either wording or approaches that trigger people off. Neuroscience essentially says we have the new brain and the old brain. I'm simplifying a highly complex thing. And generally, the new brain is logical. The old brain is instinctive. And yet, most of our decisions, most of our business decision making comes from what we call the reptilian brain. Because that's been triggered, it will override the logical brain. Yes, there's a space there, and in South Africa, I know that in particular there's some. It's quite it's advanced in France. One of my go-to places for information on neuromarketing is a Frenchman, and it definitely has a place, and more and more it's going to be part of the way that we do it. But Alison, it's part of the art of marketing. It's you can't be, although it says neuroscience, it's still more art than science. So I hope I gave you an adequate answer. If you've got an insight, I'd love to hear from you. People, with that, I'm going to be writing to you shortly. And if you have any further questions, you're welcome to bounce them off me. If I can help in any way, you've got an uncle in the furniture business, and that's me. Well, I'm in the marketing business, and there's nothing I love more than helping somebody get a bit closer to their marketing goals. And so you'll be welcome. I'll give you all the links to those fantastic resources, and you can do what you want. Bob, response rates to online surveys is a difficult one to answer because it depends entirely on the complexity of the survey, the length and the thing of the survey. One of the problems we have with online surveys is that a lot of people are not allowed to click on links in their office for security reasons, and usually our surveys are resting somewhere online, and so sometimes that's been a difficulty. But I'll be happy, Bob, to chat with you one-on-one about that. People, I respect your time. Thank you. We're just short of the 45 minutes that we promised you. Your time is valuable. My time is valuable. We're not going to go over. Thanks for the good wishes. Yes, thanks, Warwick, Geraldine. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to being in touch with you. People, I'm going to end the meeting right now. And any further questions that you might have, you are welcome to send them to me. And I will do my best to give you as much information as I possibly had. So thank you very much, and I look forward to being in touch with you shortly. Cheerio.